Well, I was going to ask you, what did you think if Trump comes in and takes over the central bank, but and centralizes like Erdogan?
He just went on Rogan. Probably going to be the biggest
I
podcast.
read briefly about that this morning.
That is the biggest podcast episode ever.
It's the final podcast. Final podcast boss meets the final guest interviewee.
But I was saying to Campbell, it's surreal though because he got no special treatment. He still came into Rogan's studio with that weird, like, just curtain thing in the background.
And this is what I was saying, is Trump only gives 45 minutes for podcast interviews.
Yeah. And this is 3 hours.
3 hours,
Yeah,
exactly.
insane.
So, but this one, and I'm an hour into it, it's more, instead of Trump, and for the first half an hour, he's doing his sort of rhetoric, like he's at a rally doing his, like, what he says always. But then Rogan has that kind of skill to turn it into a conversation.
Of course, yes.
So then it turns into a conversation, and the second half an hour alone is that much better than the first because Trump starts actually having a conversation as opposed to like an interview.
I still think Trump's rambling.
So he's talking
much.
about and he was talking about tariffs, and his biggest goal will be to just increase tariffs and lower tax and make everything American
Dead
made.
weight loss.
Yeah,
Benno, shout out to Benno.
Benno would be screaming about that. No,
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk dead weight loss and also what that means for Australia as an ally of the USA and our relationship with China. I don't know. We're not going to get too political.
It's not a political podcast. Well, we're two 22-year-old blokes. Like, what the fuck do we know about politics, you know?
Everything.
Hard quiz.
Well,
we've been asking this to a lot of the guests lately. Do you want like the welcome back to the Crooked Smile podcast brought to you by da-da-da-da, or do you want the just casual convo roll in?
Let's get casual convo rolling.
Well, we're already rolling.
See,
sweet. Cool.
But I think we should say, look, we're lucky today to be joined by a champion. We're in the midst of greatness here.
A champion.
A champion.
It's more of a redemption story. It's
well,
like
that's the beautiful thing.
The villain arc comeback.
No, that's the thing. It's like, you get knocked down, but you're showing off personality that they bring you back, and then you're a hero. Because that's why they because you had so much banter with Tom on the first one. I remember.
Yeah.
That obviously they were like, damn, we want to see more of this guy.
And it was unintentional. It was just Tom just triggered something within me, especially making fun of a non-existent monobrow.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
hater.
Come on, I'm going to come right at you and just go. Because I'm at a point like, I might have lost first round, but I'm going to go down swinging. And it was just the camera just kept panning back at me. I was walking back. It's like, I'm just reacting to everything.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was like, I was nervous being on the show, but I was like, oh, it looks like we're all having a conversation. It was like a group chat of 5 of us. I'm just like responding to everything like, ha ha, ooh.
It's like Rogan. Full circle moment.
Did he remember? Did Tom remember you? Did he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. It's weird because his schedule's very, very tight. So I looked through 2024. He would have done 90 of his stand-up shows across the country. Then he filmed 2 seasons of Taskmaster, and then he would have done Hard Quiz. And Hard Quiz is filmed 4 episodes a week over a space of 2.5 months.
Okay.
So they would have done 2 on a Tuesday, and I think 2 on a Wednesday, 2 on a Friday.
Yeah.
And the season before, the one that for the first episode film, they were doing 3 episodes a night. And so the production crew were like, no, let's extend the production run so that we can create better quality by only doing 2 episodes a night rather than 3 episodes a night. So especially due to filming Friday episodes, it's like a 4 p.m. start, a 7 p.m. start, and maybe like a 9:30 start. And a 9:30 start on a Friday. They were saying that they get a lot of drunken, rowdy people in, especially it's like when you go to a comedy show in Melbourne, something like that. That's the type of crowd they were getting. And it's just like they felt it was just frustrating getting the right crowd in. So they've got rid of the late slot and then they've extended the production run, which makes a high quality show. And so it shows to the testament of the show, not just how Tom is as a host, but the production crew behind it are incredible people, and that's what makes the show run for. They're filming the 10th season right now.
Almost as good quality as the production here at the Crooked Smile podcast.
Very much so, yes.
Almost. We got the lighting rolling. Did you get the LinkedIn? Did you get the LinkedIn connection with him?
No, I didn't. No, but
that's what I was going to ask.
No, so I posted on Instagram, and he commented on my Instagram saying, "Love a redemption story. Congratulations."
Oh.
Didn't follow me on Instagram though, even though I've got more followers than him on Instagram. But
I think he was worried about his ratio.
Yeah, I mean he makes a ton more money than I do, though. So unfortunately,
at the moment,
have you got more followers than Tom? Wow.
Yeah, at least on Instagram. But I think he's got way more on Facebook anyway. He's like TikTok's for young people, so I don't touch TikTok. It's like, yeah, fair enough. You know,
Managerial inertia.
All right, dinosaur. All right,
don't go full 12 BME ATAR on me. All right.
I learned that in year 12 from the master himself.
managerial inertia.
Yeah, business management. And
Yeah, it's
enterprise.
syllabus regarding reasons of not wanting to change.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, change management 101.
It's basically
it's
just
quite
old
relevant.
people who own businesses.
Pretty much, yes. They
Interesting.
don't want to change because they think something bad will happen when in fact, even if evidence shows, if they change things slightly, especially for the benefit of the employees, it actually could lead to far greater benefits. But
Yeah.
people are like, oh, this is what we've always done. We're going to keep doing that. And that's what stops businesses from growing.
They don't take that risk and they don't get that reward.
No, exactly.
Well, I wanted to ask, with the hard quiz going on the
Yeah.
second time,
Yep.
were you still just as nervous or was it a completely different experience because you'd been there
You
before?
rocked up in there
I honestly didn't care. And it was weird because I think I spoke to a lot of people after that first episode came out. So I filmed that the episode was released in March. I got the phone call in July saying, can you come back in October? And the film's like, yeah, cool. And it was weird because that whole school, and it was during the school holidays, which worked out.
This is
quite
last
well.
year.
Last year.
So we
yeah.
had Candy on earlier this year, Joel,
Yeah.
sorry. earlier this year.
Jolo, hashtag
And he
Jolo.
had already won hard quiz, and he's so humble he didn't talk about it on the podcast
Yeah.
last time.
Well, I
Did
mean,
you already
anyway.
have that?
Yes, I did. It was,
So it sat in your cupboard for like a
Yes,
year?
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I took it out 2 weeks ago when I had my little launch, episode TV launch, whatever it is, party.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I was already going to Melbourne for the first week of the school holidays because I went to see the ice hockey that was in town, and so it was NHL was in town. Not a fan of ice hockey, but my friend in Canberra said, "Let's go." I was like, "Sure."
That's cool.
And then I was like, "Do I extend my Melbourne trip and just stay for hard quiz?" I was like, "No, ABC are paying for my trip. I'm going to fly back to Perth and then fly back to Melbourne 2 days later and then do that." So I was in this school holiday mode. I didn't care. I just finished teaching 12 ATARs, my economics class, exhausting. I was like, I'm just going to get out there, have fun. But so I came back from Melbourne, flew back 2 days later.
Well, sorry. Just watch out for the brass mug on the.
But yeah, no, because they'll give you 2 nights accommodation if you're flying from Perth. So day before, so the night before and the night of. But I was like, can I extend it for 5 days? Like, yep, sure. We'll give you a discounted rate for the hotel, stay there, hired a car. And I had friends two of my school friends from Sydney, drove down, friend from Canberra, flew down with his wife, and a whole bunch of friends from Melbourne came down. So it was very different vibe already. So I had a whole bunch of friends in the studio. I already done this once before, and even rocking up in a day, it was just all 4 of us, because we all been on before, was just chill, cool, joking, laughing, all that kind of thing. So we didn't really care what the outcome was going to be. We knew it was going to be a fun episode because we've already been once before. We've already sort of had that relationship with Tom, and we just said to ourselves, let's just have fun and make the most of it.
What were the other niches? Because I'm really interested in the niches and how the whole.
Yeah.
It's quite a clever concept.
Well, you actually don't know the niches until you're actually on stage.
Okay.
But because it's a Battle of Duds episode, the episodes would have been released before. So I did some research because we didn't talk to each other. So I knew their names. Then I went on Wikipedia because Wikipedia has a full list of episodes.
And you learned about their niche.
No, but only one of the episodes had aired by the time we were taping this episode. So we finished we were taping in October. So 2 of the episodes hadn't appeared by then, but I knew one person. So one person had Jurassic Park, one had Kakadu National Park, and the other was beekeeping. And Neil's at the end of the episode. Sorry to spoil it for those people who haven't watched it yet. Neil was hilarious. He was very funny. He was probably the star of the Battle of Duds episode by far.
Was he the beekeeper?
Yeah, the beekeeper, yeah. And so I found Neil. I was like, beekeeping. So I just randomly found, I just went to Google, said, give me 25 facts about beekeeping. And I found that. And so I had that in the back of my head. So when they came on, I could try and steal some of his questions.
They were playing checkers, you were playing chess.
Yeah, and I feel a bit guilty saying that publicly. but you sort of knew. It was a Battle of Duds episode, you knew. And yeah, I was sitting in my dressing room and just like, yeah, beekeeping, yeah, cool. But I did no study or prep whatsoever for this episode because I don't know, I backed myself in terms of Australian currency history. I should know this stuff. And so it meant that I could sort of focus on interacting with everyone else. But in hindsight, I probably tried too hard because there was a lot of stuff cut out from the episode which didn't make it to air. regarding me bantering with Tom regarding his Instagram following and a few other things. And
Oh wow, they're
and whatnot.
censoring you.
Yeah, I mean,
No, kidding,
it's like 1 hour of filming and you only get
20
fit in 28 minutes.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's very hard to fit everything in anyway.
Well, do you win anything else apart from that, or you just win
No,
that?
you just win that. But I mean, they pay for your flights, they pay for your
Yeah.
accommodation, which, that alone is probably about $1,000 already. So that's really good. Otherwise, like other TV shows, let's say you want to go on the chase or whatever, you got to pay for your own flights and accommodation.
And you don't win anything.
So it's about the
No,
journey.
you win
Most of the time.
And most of the time you don't win, but if you do win, then you only get the money once the episode films as well. Same with Deal or No Deal. Like you only get the money when you film, because in case, let's say someone who goes on the show and does something bad or gets arrested or whatever, then they have grounds to cancel the prize money that you're entitled to.
Ah.
So they don't want someone who's a bad reputation end up being on the show and then oops, we've screwed up here. So
Yeah.
but no, Card Quiz, you don't win money. I mean, it's ABC, really. But I mean, this is priceless as it is, So
Say,
About the journey,
melt
not the
that down.
destination.
no, I was thinking that I couldn't melt this down and make little hard
coins,
quiz. Yes,
yeah.
yes. So make hard quiz coins. I mean, there's 7 kilos here. Coin probably averages, it could 5 to 10 grams each. So it's like, 700 coins I could make out of this, and everyone has a little bit of hard quiz in them.
You've already ran the numbers on that.
For the audio listeners, he's got a massive. What would you describe
For the
it
audio
as? Because it's got a
listeners,
handle on
A
it.
big brass mug. That's essentially what it is. So it's like a giant pot, like a plant pot, but metal brass, and it has the hard quiz logo on it, and then there's a handle on it. So it's like a cross between a plant pot and a coffee mug is probably the best way of putting it. And then because it was Battle Duds, there's a hole. And
clever.
it actually fits perfectly a 50-cent piece in there. So I'm gonna put a few 50-cent pieces in there and then seal that up.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
hopefully then that'll be a full one. But a few friends have been like, oh, we should just put a funnel in it and have a drink. So I was like, nah.
It's perfect size to put a funnel, through.
That's too high. Like, imagine trying to hold it up like that.
Yeah.
There's some duct tape on the bottom of it.
Yeah, it's
And
not.
Sorry, man. You got to stop
Gotta
with
ring the
He's balling. He's balling.
big brass mug on the.
No, I was like teaching class the other day, and it's like, so they brought us in the day after episode film.
Oh, really?
I was getting the attention, so it just went ding, 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 ding. It just stopped everyone. So
Did everyone flip out? Did everyone get excited at school?
They did. I think a lot of kids don't really watch ABC, apart from Bluey, and they're too young. So the primary school kids were Bluey. So a lot of them found out. I think a lot of parents found out, and they were really excited. And so, getting emails from parents, oh, this is awesome. This is so good on the show and all that kind of thing.
Oh.
And work were pretty supportive as well. So it was good to have that. I think it was good. I think I'm not the biggest celebrity at Newman College that's ever been. Daniel Ricciardo went to Newman.
Yeah.
So it's
You're second.
by quite a distance.
He's not even a Formula One driver anymore.
He's just a feature guest on our podcast.
He's an unemployed guy. So.
Matt, I mean, an unemployed guy is worth $100 million.
Yeah,
I mean, it's quite a big deal. So
He'll be on the pod soon.
yeah, I hope so. Yeah, he's a local now.
He keeps asking us to come on. We're just trying to fit him into our busy schedule. But
Just need to,
Yeah, I bumped him out.
work out them, yeah. Well,
We had to
you've
let
won
the-
something in the last year, so
we had to let the victors come in first. He hasn't won many races, whereas you've won.
I've won.
Yes.
I've won. It's clear.
yeah. I can't believe you and keeping the secret. Was that kind of difficult? Or
Oh, it
was
depends
the world's worst
depends
kept
which of my
secret?
friends who ask.
Yeah.
Family knew straight away because when I got home, friends who watched the show episode, they obviously seen it live, and then got home, told my parents and my brother straight away, and then this obviously appeared in the mail,
Yeah.
and then told some best friends about it, and then because I got a large amount of friends in that are pretty close to my inner circle, they all knew about it, so it felt like in my head it felt like everyone knew. But then I actually realized when the episode showed and like other people who sort of acquaintances and work colleagues and stuff didn't know full stop, they're like, oh, you kept a secret for a long time. It's like, yes, I did. But a year, it was like, so the episode was actually meant to air in June. I think last time on the podcast it was going to air in June. And then they said, oh no, we're going to reschedule it to October because the June episode would have been the last episode before the winter break. But they decided to put it the first episode after the winter break. So they'll air episodes from February to June, then have 3 months off, and they'll air the rest of the episodes till December. So it was 1 year, just that hiding and not telling, I'd say most, like 95% of people was pretty tough.
Yep.
But there was other things going on in that time, like being on that Hamish and Andy podcast was sort of thing, was insane. And,
Traitor. How could you? How could you?
You guys are Hamish and Andy from Temu, yeah.
Alice, what are you talking about? Look at our production. Let me get a camera of the room.
What do you mean? We have like 5 people right now behind the cameras making sure this is the highest quality production podcast in Australia.
And then you said you had a watch party?
You had a watch party? Yeah, had it at the career club.
Nice.
So, it was a whole bunch. It was about 40 or 50 of us came to a career club and, had it on the big screen there. We have a big screen just for my high school viewings. No, not really, just to put on Frogbox, watch other games during while our games are on. So it was good. And my friends, Kate and Blake owns a AV company, an audiovisual company, and he's done work for Kylie Minogue at Glastonbury and all these other things. So he brought his 2 air cannons, which were stuffed with fake $100 notes.
So you're gonna say coins and you just shot everyone with coins.
Some of the boys at the cricket club.
So episode aired and everyone was excited and everything because they couldn't believe, because I'd say probably half the people didn't know what the result was at the club. And then I lifted it and there was this red button he set up and I pressed the red button and it was shoo, and then half the notes were stuck in the roof. Because they're panels in the roof. So it's like all stuck in there. So it's just, and Dad's just got the broom and just going like that to clean it off. But my friend filmed it in slow-mo. I think you can see it on my Instagram on the post and it's just like press it and just like, you know that old, Schweppes ad where it's like all slow-mo? Do you remember? Oh no, you guys are probably too young for that. No.
Maybe.
Anyway, so it just looked it just looked pretty surreal. Just me bragging about this and all this fake money in the air and all that. And so it was really good. But just seeing people's emotions through the episode and just seeing how, started strong and then someone stole your question and then you stole his question back and then made it to Tom, the people's round and got those last 3 questions right to make the final 2. And then it was that last round, the actual hard quiz, that penalty shootout style was like, dominating. And then the last question of that, I thought I absolutely blew it. So Tom asked, according to the Australian Currency Act, what is the legal amount of 5-cent coins someone's allowed to use in a transaction?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and I thought I knew it because I'd read the Currency Act many times before, and I was like going through my head, and I'm thinking in my head, and I'm going through a story, having this anecdote. Someone came to my parents' restaurant and gave $8 of 5-cent coins. I said, nah, not legal tender. And he's like, what are you, some nerd? I was like, yes. And then I said, yep, answer's $2. And then Tom goes, incorrect. And I've just like, you see on camera, my face has changed completely.
Oh no.
My heart sinks. I've just made a fool of myself in front of 800,000 viewers. Like just being so arrogant, so cocky. And that was to win the mug. And I'm just like, nah, I've absolutely blown this here. I've absolutely made a fool of myself and made a fool of myself in front of the coin collecting community, all that kind of thing. And then, Neil had his question and he answered it very cockily, confidently. And he also got it wrong. So it's like, so I won it because Neil got his first question wrong. Yeah. So I was like, I won 4-3. So because of that, and because Neil got his last question wrong, I won the mug. So
what was the answer?
That was weird.
Wait, you got us hanging on, mate. You got us hanging on.
So his answer was the answer. It was $5.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is 105-cent coins, which is a lot. Imagine just rocking up to someone just giving 105-cent coins on Woolies.
Yeah.
Just a bag of 5s. There you go, done.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, supposedly it says $5 for 5-cent coins, $10 for 10s, 20s, and 50s. And then it's up to 10 times the amount for anything above $1. So $10 for a 1 and $20 for a 2.
What do you think about all the like cafes these days that won't accept cash? Because isn't it legal tender? So it's against the law not to accept cash.
No. So this is the misconception here. So when it comes to legal tender transactions, that it means that the currency is legal tender and can be used for transactions. However, the separate part is what people are confusing with is the terms of payment or terms of conditions. So that's set by the ACCC. So the terms of payment that you set for a business, you must clearly state that on front of your account or whatever, these are the acceptable forms of payment for our products, and we're entitled to do so. So if a business says card only, they're allowed to say that because they state it. However, they must state the surcharges that apply for that charge.
Okay.
So if let's say you come in and you're buying something from this cafe for $20 or $30 and you give them $50 and they say, no, we don't accept cash, as long as there's a sign there that says, yep, this is fine. No, we don't accept cash. It's card only. The surcharge is 1.1%. That's absolutely legal. Whilst the currency is legal tender, it doesn't mean it's it meets the commercial terms that is a separate law altogether.
Yeah.
So the legal tender can be used to settle commercial terms, but legal tender means it only can be used to settle debts, not engaging in transactions. So let's say later on, I go into the cafe and the cafe owner, for whatever reason, says, I'll write you an invoice instead of actually settling on the spot. So let's say you buy 20 coffees, you settle an invoice. That invoice can be settled for cash legally.
Right.
But when you engage in transaction face-to-face, you're not writing an invoice or paying a debt to someone. You're actually engaging in an action of trade. So that's thereby setting commercial terms. And as long as you set the commercial terms straight in front of it, then that's fine. It's like saying you're cash only. Same thing applies in that respect. If you say, we're not accepting card, that's fine as long as you clearly state that on your counter and it's clear and visible to see.
So theoretically, if every business did that, they could just phase out cash.
Pretty much. But also it's going to come to a point of what is our backup system? Especially we've seen so many incidents in the last year or so where cash has come to the rescue because we've seen bank systems, IT systems stop people accessing cash. We've seen issues like Square, for example, you've seen Square's terminals all around the place. They had a global shutdown early in the year, and a lot of businesses couldn't use Square terminals. And so what is your backup system in that place? And so the RBA and many other central banks around the world have committed cash will always be available for as long as the people want it. So it doesn't come down to governments, especially. And people think there's some sort of conspiracy that government's trying to phase out cash.
The World Economic Forum.
But with all that, it comes down to us as consumers whether we want to use cash. And so for me, it's the trade-off between I carry cash. I always have cash in my wallet. And I always use cash for transactions under $50 because I just want to get the coins and see if there's anything rare that comes out or find any colored coins in my change. That's me as a coin collector. But I also want to use cards because I just want to bank up all the frequent flyer points. So like last month, I probably through credit cards alone, I've gained 13,000 points. And that's nearly a trip to Adelaide, already one-way trip to Adelaide. But that's because I'm the treasurer of the cricket club, I go buy cricket balls and I go buy beers for the bar and all that kind of thing. Means that
on your card.
On my card because I'm the treasurer.
And then you get
I get reimbursed, right?
Nice.
So it works pretty well.
Nice little scheme there, yeah.
So I pretty much like using cash for the reasons as a coin collector and stuff, but also the tangibility of cash is really good to have. I think a lot of kids that come up nowadays, they never seen physical cash. And so one of my best friends from school, every Christmas, I give her daughters $50 cash each. And they don't see cash because
it feels like free money now when you have cash because everything's on your card.
That's it. So psychologically, when you have cash in your wallet, it doesn't feel you're taking money from your bank account because it's already, I guess, a sunk cost in a way in your wallet. So it's like I look at my wallet and it's like, oh wow, like last week I had probably $500 in cash in my wallet. And
it's free money.
I go spend. And now I look at my wallet, it's like, oh wait, I've only got $150 in my wallet left. But then I'm forgetting, oh wait, I've got a lot of money. I got money in the bank. So I don't say a lot of money. I do have money in the bank, not a lot of money, but I don't want someone coming and start robbing me all of a sudden. But yeah, it's
those merch droppers paying dividends.
Nah, that merch drop was one of the biggest flops of the year. But cycles. But there's studies that show that having physical cash trains our brain different psychologically in terms of how we use it and how we feel about it. So I think there's part of it psychologically. People use cash now. As a lot of people, there's this sort of trend called cash stuffing. So people have different wallets for different purposes and they'll have goals in them and they'll go and use cash and they'll put into different wallets and things and they'll stuff it and say, oh, cool, we've hit our $2,000 target. We can go on this holiday now. But then they have to go back to the bank and put it in the bank to pay for all their flights and accommodation and all that kind of thing. So there's that side of it because people see the tangibility of it and depending on the tangibility of it, people feel differently about it. But also there's also the inconvenience of holding cash when having to go to an ATM, having to put the money over the till, having to count the money, having to go back to the bank and deposit. What is that cost for that versus having to engage in a transaction cost and hiring an FPOS terminal for a business? Does it weigh out or is it more than excessive? But it's funny because Australia charges FPOS and credit card charges. The EU does not permit credit card charges to happen. And so I think we've seen a great acceleration, especially in the Nordic countries and parts of Europe where card usage has just accelerated completely. Not just COVID, but just the way that fees aren't charged on cards in Europe has allowed that to exponentially increase. Whereas Australia, there's still the increase. I think it's now 17% of transactions are cash or 13%. So it's quite a low amount, but it's just flatlined over the last 2 years or so. So I think we found our bare minimum now. I think we're not going to hit zero anytime soon. But the cash will be accessible, and I think it's a good backup system for people to have in case technology fails in a system or there's a bank outage or whatever. People can still have access to cash and be able to use it as a form of transaction. And I say to businesses, if you go card only, I think you're going to set yourselves up for failure. I mean, not to appease the conspiracy theories, but more so, this is your backup system. Just have a small amount of change that's there that you're ready to go. But it doesn't mean you have to go to the bank every day. You can just at least have a safe somewhere, put your cash in there. Your cash holdings are going to be low anyway. Just take your time to go to the bank and do it when you need to and when you fit it in.
Well, it feels like whenever I'm buying stuff with cash, I feel like a drug dealer. Like, because the only people that have abundances of cash these days are drug dealers.
And
you feel
Joel Kendo.
but it feels kind of sketchy. You're just like, everyone's whipping out their phone credit cards and you've just got a wallet full of cash. I'm like, how do you get all that money?
I think it's different. I think it's cultural and demographic differences. I guess for you guys in your generation, you never really had that experience in holding cash and grab. Whereas for me, my generation, presents were mostly given, like through the 90s and early 2000s. Your birthday presents were given in a card and there's cash inside. That's what we were.
I still get that from the
grandparents.
grandparents.
Exactly. And so
it's free money.
So what's the video where like the guy gets the card from his grandma and he opens it up and like hundreds of dollars fall out? It's like, and he's reading the note. He's like, "Oh, thanks, grandma. That's so nice." And they're like, "Oh, there's some money there." And it's like, oh, "Indeed, there is."
But it's free money from them, and then it feels like free money because it's not in your bank account.
Exactly,
so it's like a double free money.
Yeah, again, it's a psychological thing behind it. So I guess for our generation, we're sort of that. We've always been transitionary in terms of technology. Like we started off without laptops, without broadband, without all that kind of thing, and then through our teenage years, all those things started happening in there. So we moved to USB drives and cloud storage, and we moved towards iPods and iPhones, and having that, and then internet banking has been a big deal, and then having cards and phones on the cards. Like we've seen both sides of it, and we're old enough to remember both sides of it. It's not our generation above us, like the Gen X's and the baby boomers. They've been mostly that sort of physical tangibility thing, whereas for us, we've seen both sides as millennials, and therefore our relationship with cash is. We don't want to disappear, but we also like the benefits of having card as well in that. So I guess it comes down to what your cultural, how you relate culturally to people around you, your demographics, and what you see was probably why you feel like you're a drug dealer holding cash. Whereas for me, it's like, oh no, that's just cash. That's my wallet. I'll just go use it when I can. But I realize the cash in my wallet is now lasting longer and longer and longer because even, yes, I went for dinner, I used cash, but I used my card 5 times in the same day. So that ratio is also happening as well. So the cash in my pocket is lasting longer. The banknotes in circulation are lasting longer as well. They're saying the average lifespan of a $100 note is now going to be 220 years after the modeling they've done. And I think $50 notes is going to be about 70 years overall because the velocity of transactions of using cash means that cash is being used less around and it's being pretty much stored and hoarded. Like for example, use a $100 note. You give a $100 note. You hoard it or you put it in your bank account. And then the $100 note doesn't go out until someone needs it and then goes straight back in the bank account. So the damage and usage on a $100 note, for example, is going to be last infinitely longer. But also small transactions are also causing less usage of cash. So for example, we haven't printed any new $10 notes since 2017. It's been 7 years and we have not had any additional print runs of $10 notes since the initial new $10 notes were released.
Wow.
So it's interesting times, but I guess it comes down to a point, cultural differences, demographic differences, and how we use cash is going to impact the overall usage of it.
The other thing that's changing is cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Is that going to affect cash at all as well?
I think that's going to come down to whether governments take charge of it or not. We need to see if cryptocurrency is going to be a leading force in it in terms of transaction usage. Governments have to support businesses to do so.
And governments and the relationships they have with banks, like that would be a pretty bold move. And, there's always, your backroom
Do you think it would be better if the governments had control of it or if not? Because isn't the whole point it's a decentralized currency?
Well, I think
They would facilitate it though.
So Reserve Bank New Zealand, European Central Bank, Reserve Bank have already done significant research into creating a digital currency, whether it be a digital Australian dollar, digital euro, digital New Zealand dollar, those kinds of things. They're looking at it where it's money that can still be accessed offline. It's not tracked by individuals or not tracked by the bank or by anyone. It's still DeFi in a way. It's still the currency's value is still regulated by the central banks and it's still traded as such and it's still an issuance of currency. Yeah. But you have a digital currency and a physical currency. and add those together to create your overall physical money supply, which is your M1 and M2.
But the
overall.
transactions are just between no
pretty
merchant,
much, that's
no
it.
intermediary.
And I think a lot of people, I think the problem is the central banks have not communicated well enough. That's created distrust amongst people. Think, oh no, the government's still going to be able to track your digital currency in that. So I think the central banks have not communicated enough to the population. Said, this is what we're currently investigating. This is how we do it. This is how it works. How do you guys feel about adapting this?
Let's get economics here. Can we? So what does that mean if that was to happen? What does it mean for the transmission mechanism, and what does that mean for how quickly people react to something like a change in the cash rate or anything like that? Like, does it also mean that you don't get those?
It's also very volatile,
whatever,
like the market of all the blockchain.
But as in, if you've got a currency, if you've got like a backed
Australian dollar. You're talking about digital AUD as opposed to cryptocurrency.
But the technology
we're talking
I thought you were talking about cryptocurrency.
They're just using blockchain as like a main, but it'd be stable.
And so when governments would
my bad.
No. So if governments and central banks want to engage in blockchain technology, they're not going to adapt Bitcoin or Ethereum or all that kind of thing. It's going to be their own digital crypto or digital blockchain currencies, and there'll be AUDs, USDs, euros, whatever it is from there. And I think one of the big benefits of having that means that cross-border transactions are going to happen a lot quicker.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing. I think in terms of transmission mechanism and changes in cash rate and all that kind of thing, no difference because all these changes are happening automatically. So when reserve banks buy bonds and back and forth, and banks buy and sell in order to manipulate cash rate, that's already done automatically through the banking system in itself. So it's not going to impact us as spenders in the cash in our wallet, whatever. It's that same impact on disposable income when the cash rate changes. That's fine. But I think the facilitation of cross-border transfers is going to be huge. And there's been a study previously between Reserve Bank of Australia, Reserve Bank of South Africa, and Bank Negara in Malaysia, which is Malaysia Central Bank. They were looking at how the digital currency could actually facilitate cross-border transfers immediate. So, for example, if I want to send money to my cousin in Malaysia, I don't have to wait 2 weeks a week for that money to transfer across, or I don't have to use PayPal and incur a fee to transfer the money across immediately.
Well, already, like I went to Europe last year.
Yeah,
I'm in Italy. I can then use my NAB credit card to buy things, and it just puts like a 0.05%.
No, but it wouldn't even be your NAB credit card. It would be a wallet created by the Reserve Bank using your own Australian dollars to be used at your merchant in Italy without incurring any fees whatsoever.
And you get an international transaction fee that rolls in a couple of days later.
You'd have to have an international government
between central banks. Yes, exactly.
So
the financial systems, the transaction system between central banks need to work. So I think Reserve Bank of Australia and Reserve Bank of New Zealand are actively looking into that.
Yeah.
I think that given the amount of movement between the two countries, it makes perfect sense. If I was able to use a digital Australian dollar in New Zealand without any issues, it would make so much difference.
Create a little economic block
but the banks will be the ones that would be massively pissed off because there's billions of dollars from those fees that come through, And
it's the start of a movement that would see them, in 100 years' time potentially become redundant. I wonder if they would still play a role in, I guess, lending for mortgages and stuff like that.
And they've been investigating that. My brother's become a mortgage broker recently as well. We won best new broker in WA a few weeks ago.
So he's already doing well.
He's already doing well. He's far better than me on the money stakes, at least. I know. Man. But it could get to a point where people could actually control their own mortgages and not have to go for a bank, because when you deregulate finance, you could have individuals that they can start. And AI is now assessing mortgages and abilities for people to pay and all that stuff. That technology is just going to increase and develop even further. That banks could just come out of the picture altogether, and you could actually. I mean, it's an extreme example.
It is, yeah.
But it could get to a point where individuals could start giving mortgages to other individuals.
Is that a change for good?
Yeah. I think that's
Is that a change for good?
Because how much do banks tack on mortgages? Banks tack on another.
Well, it just transfers the power back to the people.
Yeah, I think that's what DeFi is all about in that sense. But in terms of the fees that banks charge on mortgages, is a whole different. Obviously your main fee is your interest rate that you're paying.
Yeah.
And then on those repayments, if you've gone for a mortgage broker, then there's also a small percentage of trail that's going to go to your mortgage broker as well. There's a lot of hands in the pot.
Okay.
And then also there's your home loan fees and your home loan fees. Then there might be a credit card attached to it. There might be early payment fees if you pay off your mortgage early. If you look at when you do sign up a mortgage and you look at the fees that a bank charges you, there's so many different things that they can charge you for, even though 99% of the time you're just paying for the interest rate. the fees that they can charge you are insane.
Is it usually about a percent extra onto, or how much are they tacking on? Like half a percentage point? As in the mortgage rates, they're usually like 50 basis points ahead of the cash rate?
Cash rate, yes. But I think, so for example, my mortgage is like 6.09 at the moment.
Yeah. Oh,
and so that's probably, about 0.3, 0.4. But when you're looking over tens of billions of dollars of mortgages written, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Is that fixed?
And that's how they make
fixed, yeah. No, mine's variable, sorry.
Yeah,
but at the moment, it's really no difference. It's probably going to be at that cash rate's probably going to remain the same for at least another year.
Till May?
If we just got to see what inflation figures are going to be like.
It's
sticky.
Pushed
it's
out.
sticky.
Yeah,
it's very sticky compared to other countries. And I think the RBA probably approached it incorrectly because they weren't looking appropriately of the source of inflation.
Yeah,
and they admitted mistakes in when determining the source of inflation. They were trying to challenge whether corporations were responsible for inflation in terms of profit taking. The initial research was no. They've come back and said there's probably an element to that now.
The current recession we're in, do you think we're near the bottom?
We're not technically in a recession, but officially. Per capita we are, but not in the official sense we're in a recession.
Well, it's the highest participation rate
ever.
So the issue is a lot of the job growth that's being fueled at the moment has been the massive increase in public sector employment. And public sector employment doesn't lead to productivity. It doesn't lead to strong wage growth. And therefore we're seeing gross income into the economy and gross in terms of the circular flow model. We're not seeing large increases because that's the nature of public sector work. Your wages are generally sticky. Your wage rises are generally at or below inflation. Whereas if private enterprise firms and businesses were hiring more people, then you start seeing efficiency gains, productivity gains, larger wages, and therefore that's when you start seeing the economic growth. So the problem is why we have such low unemployment rates, but such low economic growth is because the public sector job growth has been massive over the last 2 to 3 years in that sense. Whether it be through government spending initiatives or whatever it is, they're just hiring. There's been an increase in hiring of people in the public sector.
But the RBA target unemployment is, I'm trying to remember.
There's no target because they want full employment, not the NIRE, so non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment.
Yeah.
So they want is unemployment where inflation remains at 2 to 3%.
But there was a number at school that they said. I reckon when they taught economics,
so it was about 3.4, 3.5%.
But it's above that at the moment. But they're saying it's low unemployment.
Exactly. So it's slightly, but for a long period of time in the last couple of years, it was well below that amount, and it's been sort of crazy. But we start seeing unemployment jumping quite a bit, especially in WA. I think we've hit that 4% mark at the moment.
Yeah.
So mining sectors suffered big time. You've seen the nickel prices collapse from $6,000 a ton to $750 a ton.
And lithium.
Lithium. Sorry.
But nickel's collapsed as well.
Nickel's collapsed. And so we're seeing mining closes. And so.
Good old gold, hey?
Yeah. And so we need to really look at the numbers deeper and looking at source numbers. And the RBA puts a lot of research documents a lot. And I'll go through those and read through those to see what the core sources are, because we really need to be understanding what the breakdown economy is overall. And it's not too hard to understand. I think all you need to do is go to the RBA website, download a PDF speech, put it in ChatGPT or Notebook LM, turn it into a podcast, listen to it for 9 minutes. Okay, cool. You get the gist of it from there. And I think as Australians, our economic literacy is very, very poor. When I attended the RBA teacher immersion event in Sydney last year, that was big. Our financial literacy is poor, but our economic literacy is poorer. So we need to understand the basics of economics and understand why decisions are made, understand the concept of opportunity costs, understand what's government's role in the economy, what is the Reserve Bank's role in the economy, and then we can start having those deeper discussions rather than people who have not had education sprouting opinions and then confusing people, especially like, for example, when
like politicians
like me on this podcast
that don't know about the economy.
Well, that's a big part of it, but also the other issues. So, for example, when Philip Lowe, previous governor, said we don't see cash rate rising from its current state until 2024,
that was a nightmare.
But the problem was people took the media's word for it rather than actually finding his statement on the RBA website and understanding what the caveat wrote underneath.
Okay.
And so people who saw that caveat managed to fix their rates until end of this year at 2%. And therefore they were $10,000 to $20,000 better off $10,000 to $15,000 off on the average mortgage.
All right. So I just sat through listening to all of that, and for the simpleton,
yes,
in very simple terms, does that mean economy bad next year, economy good?
There's one thing about economists. Economists can tell things why things happened, but they're rubbish at predicting things happening.
Well, economic theory.
So
because right now is an economic teacher's nightmare because
It is,
we've got
because
low
it's not following
growth,
theory.
high employment, high inflation. And you're like,
So
hang on,
so
this is
right
not
now, in
supposed to-
simple terms,
I can't tell you
Okay,
because
I won't ask for a
there's
prediction.
so many things that are happening in the world right now. The US election,
Yeah.
the war in Gaza, the war in Russia, Ukraine. You've seen gold hitting 4,000.
I was going to say, all you can say is buy gold. Anything, just buy gold.
Gold's gone up 45, 50% in the last 2 years. It's like oil's creeping back up, isn't it? And I only know this because I go to Costco and put my petrol in. It's gone up from $1.48 to $1.54 in the last 2 weeks. So tensions around the world are causing, because all these tensions are unpredictable things. You never know what Russia's going to do next. You don't know what Israel's going to do next, or Ukraine's going to do next, or what the United States or China's going to do next. So I can't put a prediction of where the economy's going to head. I can say, this is what's happening. We can extrapolate, albeit we got to take out this.
So
There's a lot of asterisks in front of predictions at the moment.
So the economy right now, lots of people are being employed, but there's not a lot of growth in the economy.
So there's not enough wage growth and there's no productivity growth. Australian productivity growth has been horrendous for the last decade. Because in order to grow economy, you need productivity, microeconomic reform, basic microeconomic reform. And I think successive governments have relied too much on immigration on that, on skill migration, rather than trying to upskill our existing population and getting effort out. I mean, we're massively short on labourers. We're massively short on teachers, doctors, pilots, everything. Pilots, for example, massive shortage because COVID happened and then Emirates and Etihad and Qatar came in and swooped off most of Qantas's pilots, paying massive wages. But what's Qantas doing to improve productivity in there? The
taking fat dividends and paying out massive executive.
And that's just an example of poor productivity in this country. And I think the core crux of it is that we need to improve productivity for improved research and development investment, improved investment in education, improved investment in infrastructure, but not just building random train lines out to bloody Alkimos and fuel.
Hey, I've got a friend that lives in Alkimos.
But being smart about how we approach our infrastructure. So there's a whole different combination, but governments won't do it because there's no political will to do so because they focus short-term, one-term projects or one-term priorities and not looking at 10, 15, 20 years in advance. They might put the odd white paper out there.
With 3-year election periods.
Exactly. It's terrible.
From the conversation before when I was
Yes.
trying to understand what was going on, you said lots of people have been getting employed in the last 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
So does that mean that will eventually tick over into growth for the economy because there's a larger workforce?
But it depends where they're working though.
So what are the main sectors people are being employed at the moment?
Well, the problem is most of the sectors is public sector. So it's a lot of bureaucracy, all that kind of thing where wage growth is.
But we need it more in the labour is what you're saying.
But we need more in terms of physical labour because I guess in construction, especially in housing construction, massive shortages. If we can get people back in housing and we can improve the availability of housing for people, you're going to get better outcomes in society. And then you get people who have better job prospects, less mental health issues, better growth in the economy.
So more like Dale Alcocks of the world.
I think I know some people think social housing is a bad thing, but social housing is not about your homes, West kinds of homes. It's creating affordable homes and people live in so that people have disposable income to spend on other things in the economy and not paying $650 a week on a 10.1 bedroom apartment in Scarborough.
So until more people start getting hired into the labour sector, you don't see the economy turning around.
Well, that's part of it. But also we need to look at long-term growth regarding microeconomic form. So identifying what the future industries that we need to cover in our economy. So I guess we're having an aging population. How does age healthcare work into that? There's going to be more people being employed in that. We've got a growing population. How do we have better teachers and how do our universities become more efficient and stop focusing on research dollars and actually improving teaching outcomes?
So educational system reform.
Same thing on top of that, it's the educational system reform.
Qualitative.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than quantitative.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to hire more people or build more things or whatever. It's that improving the quality of what we have in existence so that we can start exploring. Like, look at Singapore's economy. They've become quite resilient through the last few years when global economic growth has slowed down overall. But Singapore has always been a future-focused economy. I went and took a school trip to Singapore last year and we looked at the polytechnics, which is the equivalent of TAFEs.
Yeah.
They do a lot of stuff that's future-focused in that. So Singapore is a small country in population size. They have 90% of their products imported. They're looking at vertical farms in different forms, aquaponics, hydroponics, and all that kind of thing. And Singapore government threw $50 million into a project so that they can look at self-sufficiency in terms of food security. So how do we take that same concept into Australia and looking and those kinds of concepts and looking at how do we future-proof our nation, and what are things that we need to do in order to future-proof our nation so that we can build on that growth? Because we can't keep digging stuff underground forever.
So I was going to say the mining sector's always been Perth's like biggest
That's it.
sector.
Yeah, but how much do we have still there, and what's the world going to need? Because our growth is so dependent on China's growth. If China suddenly flops, and if China's next stimulus package becomes not what the Australian economy needs, then we're sort of stuffed in a way because we haven't diversified.
Or if Trump gets elected and as a
exactly, then sort of tariffs and
as
stuff
an ally of the USA, we become an enemy of China.
Yeah,
so you're saying more autonomy for Australia would be good.
In a way, yes. We need to figure out what our strengths are in our labour force, in our workforce, and determine what our future needs for our economy are, and start developing in those industries. So, I mean, we've got strengths in solar. I think there was
energy,
energy, that kind of thing that we can actually
nuclear.
Yeah, that's controversial. But again, I can't comment because I still don't know enough about nuclear and its technology and stuff and all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a proposal of building solar power plants across Australia and exporting that power to Singapore, rather than having to rely on Malaysia for it. So.
But that sort of education, like we'd already be 10 years or so behind on that sort of what you require for.
Exactly. And do we have the labour force and the construction force to service that?
Yeah.
And do we actually need to rely on migration to help construct that types of projects as well?
It's amazing how rigid, and we've spoken about it briefly before, like a rigid curriculum can really screw your economy over, I guess. And
like, if we look at the recent year 11, 12 economic syllabus, they've gutted out a lot of things from that. And it's made it not simple, but it doesn't look at the nuances of the Australian economy enough that. And so looking at the challenges that we face and the breakdowns of our labour force and all this is more so, let's look at economic theory that's consistently being challenged at this point, rather than actually analysing what's going on in our economy and realising that economics is about a study of choices, not about dollars and cents and econometrics and all that kind of thing. It's
regression,
And so what are the choices we were making in our economy? What are the impacts of that? What can we do to solve those? That's what economics is about.
Yeah.
And then we use theory to help support us in making decisions, not just having to analyse demand, supply graphs and all that kind of thing. So we've got a long way to go in terms of adjusting. And that will also create macroeconomic reform by improving our education system.
It's crazy how so many different things all intertwine and impact it. Like whether it's
so that's cool,
but even just in the global sense, like there's BRICS, for example, which we mentioned before this, which is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa alliance, which just has the goal of devaluing USD and putting all the power into, is it yen, the Chinese currency?
Yeah, yuan.
Yeah, putting all the buying power into that with oil and things.
Yeah, it's not just that. I think there was discussion point in that recent forum where they wanted a united currency. But that also creates challenges because you have a united currency, you've got to have similar monetary policy and similar levels of economic growth as well.
And the education around that, like that was established in 2009, BRICS, and no one knows about it. I was talking to my housemate about it this morning, who's like a smart guy, and he'd never even heard of it.
Because most people's worldview is what's in front of them. Most people don't think about a worldview because all they're thinking about is, what do I need to put on for dinner tonight? What do I need to do at work tomorrow? That kind of thing. They'll look at the wider issues when it does impact them significantly. But most Australians or most people in the world don't think about what else is going on in the world around them. And like the BRICS Forum was happening at the same time as the Chocolate Forum happening in Samoa. But people are more focused on King Charles and in Samoa rather than looking at what's happening in the BRICS Forum and what the discussion points that came out of it. That the BRICS countries accepted 13 new strategic partners, including countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, India, who are emerging Southeast Asian nations, developing Southeast Asian nations, who will hit that sort of same level of economic structure and growth as these BRICS countries.
But you won't even see it in the media, like the mainstream media won't be in it because it's not in the interest of our country. So then that lack of education.
Surely it is massively in the interest of our.
It definitely is, but
not directly.
It's not an exciting thing to talk about within a half an hour news bulletin, and that becomes the issue. It's more a 7:30 report thing, but also what like on the ABC or sort of insiders kind of discussion.
So how would, and I'm not disputing it, how is it in the interest of our country? Just curious.
Because how we linked our economy is so linked globally that our dependence on our economic growth is dependent on what other countries demand from us. So,
and it would be better to be dependent on BRICS than the USD as a global,
as the global currency. Currency. You need to look at it. Who are our major export partners? China, Japan, Korea.
Yeah.
And so with that, India. Of course, obviously China's part of BRICS in that.
But weren't you saying it's better for us to be less reliant on them?
But in the short term, medium term, we're still going to be reliant on it. We can't be isolationist.
I think we're going to be reliant on them for
yeah. So it's find that balance between not being isolationist, but also not being fully reliant on export for your economic growth. It's find that middle ground out and saying, we've got enough to be self-sufficient.
Extracting enough value domestically before you ship off.
So do you think it would be in our interest to join BRICS then? Because then that turns into a political mess with our alliances with the United States and all of that.
That's the other thing. And so I can't give an answer on that. It's a lot more nuanced to just say yes or no. Regarding that, so many different factors that would be involved.
Or you just kind of got to play the hand you're dealt and cater to everything.
I think Australia, where it is positioned geopolitically, it's got to play the hand it's dealt.
It'd be nice for travel. If that happens,
go to Brazil for the weekend.
If they
visas and all that kind of thing,
economy,
and free trade agreements,
like an EU sort of.
Look, I'm not opposed to the idea. I don't know.
I think,
sounds like a pretty. People could try and make it out to be a pretty evil thing, but if you're China, it makes a lot of sense. Like if you're trying to be a world superpower, you don't understand why people are so reliant on the US dollar, and you want to kind of.
Yeah, I think the over-reliance on the US dollar, especially if the fundamentals of the US dollar don't match the state. If the movement of the US dollar doesn't match the fundamentals of the US economy.
Yeah,
it's one of those currencies that doesn't. So essentially, if the world's uncertain, the US dollar actually increases in value.
What are they now?
It's
There's 35 trillion in debt to the treasury, aren't they? Like
it's just a safe haven.
It's a safe haven. It's like it's treating the same as gold and silver. That's what it's going to become like that. But then there's going to be. Because before the US dollar, what was the currency of choice before that?
Wasn't it backed by gold and silver, everything?
Yeah, but in terms of taking gold and silver out of that, what would be the other currency that was the main reserve currency in the world?
In the world
before the US dollar.
Great question.
Would it be the pound?
Yeah, the British pound, because the British were the ones dominating trade.
Imperialism,
so essentially what will come of the next superpower after the United States, they'll become the next reserve currency. It could be China. It could be India. It could be... It'll
be BRICS because they're the next.
Yeah, it could be BRICS as a collective, and they have their own united currency to do that.
I think BRICS wants to do it all through the Chinese currency is the main one.
Yeah, and I think that could work in that respect. But you also got to make sure the systems are in place to protect the value of the currency at the same time, and not be just exposed to, I guess attempts to devalue or not to ruin a currency like we saw in the 80s, where we saw the British pound devalue a significant amount in a single day. So it's got to be a currency that needs to be developed large enough in trade so that it can't be attacked by rivals and such. And that
there'd be some growing pains if they did actually bring in that BRICS, like getting everyone, as you say, on the same, because it was already hard enough, obviously, with the European bloc. Yeah. Like I know there were a few years, and those are all pretty,
of course,
stable governments, stable countries, except for the ones.
But also, there's ideological differences between countries as well.
Oh God,
China and India, especially. That they want to work together, but also don't trust each other.
Yeah.
I mean, China's authoritarian, India's a democracy on paper. On paper, it's a democracy, but you know what I mean in that sense. South Africa's also they're flawed.
South Africa's a weird one.
They're flawed, flawed democracies. In that Russia's not really democracy.
Russia's the scariest.
Brazil's probably the most democratic of them all at the moment. It's pro-Brazil.
Just saying something.
We're just saying,
Have you seen, and I know this is off topic, but have you seen the censorship going on with Brazil and how they're looking to ban Twitter because Twitter won't remove the political rivals of the current party in place in Brazil?
Yeah, wow. I'm not too confident in terms of when any form of media gets censored to protect something or whatever, but also social media companies have a role to not also to spread misinformation.
I agree.
But it gets scary because then countries will use disinformation policies to suppress their political.
It's been happening in Malaysia for decades. It's part of the Malaysian Sedition Act. It's been there. It was a British colonial era act, and the Malaysian government used it successfully over time to prevent that kind of thing. So it's nothing foreign to us. It's nothing new to us. It's just that it's transitioning into a new form of media.
What happened to Musk and freedom of speech? A bit of a double standard that Twitter's blocking. Political.
No, they're not. That's the whole point.
They're not now.
They didn't want to censor people, like political opponents in Brazil. Okay. So Musk, this is a massive thing. I was listening to, I think it was Mike Benz or someone on a podcast for 3 hours talk about, on the Sean Ryan podcast or something, talking about and going into and breaking down the information and censorship and what's going on and how Twitter and Brazil are amongst like massive court cases and law to try and come to a solution, because Brazil are like, if you won't censor these people, X isn't allowed to be in this country, and then everyone in Brazil has to use VPNs to access X, things like that. So it's like It's a
Yeah,
crazy time. It's a crazy
crazy.
time because this is all unprecedented stuff. Because now that there is so much freedom of speech going on, and there is access to know what's going on in every corner of the world, it's then like who has the right to decide what you have access to and what you don't have access to.
And again, I can't comment well enough on the Brazil situation, but I can talk on my experience on the Malaysian situation. And historically, newspaper editors and all that kind of thing have been jailed successfully, especially when Mahathir Mohamad was prime minister between 81 and 2003. There was a lot of those jailings of newspaper editors who were previously were free to comment on things, and they used a very vague section of the Sedition Act that was used in British colonial times to start locking up political opponents. Anwar Ibrahim, the current prime minister, was also locked up in the same thing under false charges of sodomy and all that kind of thing. So we were seeing that all the way through. So from a Malaysian perspective, from my family's perspective, it's a real thing that can happen. And I guess the similarities between the Malaysian situation and the Brazilian situation is that it's how the media is being transmitted, or the news is being transmitted. It's not, we're moving from traditional papers into social media. So how do governments feel threatened by that same thing, and what they're going to do about it from there? So, and that's going to be a continual theme across the world, especially in flawed democracies in that respect.
Well, at the end of the day, it just comes down to who gets to be the arbiter and decide what is disinformation and what isn't. And that's such a slippery slope when someone gets into power and wants to hold it.
The level of subjectivity who's involved in that is
and that's
crazy.
the scary thing.
But also the polarization and the radicalism that is occurring on these social media sites and has occurred how quickly that's occurred is so scary. So I don't know. I'd hate to have that job. That'd be super difficult. But it's scary that the echo chambers that exist, because there are some people on these. And I know I understand freedom of speech, but how can you have like a QAnon going around spouting that sort of nonsense on like everyday social media?
Yeah, it comes down to poor media literacy. We're not teaching. We're not going to depth about teaching media literacy in our schools, and so how to discern what is real, what is fake, what's AI, what's not AI.
And what platforms you use.
Yeah, what platforms you use. Exactly. So the education is not, and like I said, the curriculums are 20 to 30 years out of date. So until, especially kids going up through and understanding those kinds of concepts, it's very hard to do so. And some schools are doing a great job of it. Other schools aren't touching it at all. The curriculum's not touching it much at all. So we're going to continue to face these problems for who knows how long. And so how governments deal with it, how media outlets do it, how us as citizens look at information. There's a lot of unknowns that can happen into the future.
I love this stuff. We're getting niche.
Yeah, no.
We're getting niche on the Cruise Smart podcast.
I was going to ask way back before, just to take a little break, the Hamish and Andy podcast. So how was that? How was that experience?
That was amazing. That was the best. I was about to say best podcast ever, but it's like,
second best podcast you've been on, actually. Thanks very much.
No, so that was a bunch of, so the producer, he goes by Radio Mike on Instagram, and he's a great bloke. He's a producer on the Hamish and Andy podcast. I was like, hey, Joel, Hamish and Andy are looking to mint their own $1 coin. Like, they started some initial discussions in the mint to see if it was possible. And the mint said, Royal Australian Mint said, no, can you talk us through the process? It's like, can you come on? It's like, yeah, sure, of course. Like, I've loved Hamish and Andy. I grew up listening to them on the radio and then the
Gap
podcast.
Years.
Camera boy Rob, who's currently not with us, is away. He's a huge Hamish and Andy fan. Like, it's all he listens to.
They're amazing, and in that sense, like, there's no way I'm turning down a Hamish and Andy interview whatsoever. And so I went in. It was like it ended up being, I spoke to him for about 20 minutes, and then the episode ended up being about 10, 12 minutes in terms of my segment on that. And they're talking about, okay, Joel, what's the best way to get about it? And they gave me the term coinologist, which is now I've carried that on through. Like,
You've coined it.
I've coined it, exactly. That's it. So I was I did a radio interview with ABC Radio Hobart the other day, and they wrote and called me numismatist, which is a technical term.
So there's a technical term.
Yeah. Numismatist.
Numismatist.
Numismatist. N-U-M-I-S.
Numismatist.
Numis, M-A-T-I-S. Oh my God, I can't spell
Numismatist.
I can write it down. I can't spell it. I'll be bad at spelling.
Coinologist.
Coinologist. That's what's now coinologist thing. So they gave me that term. I talked about it through the process, and I said to them, in order for a coin to be made with your likeness on it, it's going to be near impossible by the Royal Australian Mint, because you got to show that firstly, you got to be dead. That's the first thing I said to them.
Yeah. Okay.
So essentially, even though
the
Royal Australian Mint broke that rule probably in the early 90s with a $10 coin they called a coin series called a Living Legends, which completely broke their rule anyway, because like Dawn Fraser was and Shirley Strickland and whoever, all those athletes were on their coins. Yeah. But I said to her, there's a way to get around that is the Tuvalu option. So the Perth Mint makes Australian coins, but also make coins for other countries. And they make collectibles. So if, let's say Perth Mint wants to make like lately they've done James Bond's coins. They've done Pink Panther coins. To still sell it as coins, they get into a deal with the government of Tuvalu. They pay the government of Tuvalu a fee, a year annual fee. It might be 200,000, 500, whatever the fee they charge if Tuvalu government wants, right? In return, they can use Tuvalu on the back of the coins. They'll put King Charles on it, on the back of the coin. But the other thing is that the Tuvalu dollar is pegged to the Australian dollar 1-to-1. So if you go to Tuvalu and you go to the country, you can use Australian dollars freely.
Where is Tuvalu?
In the Pacific Islands.
I was going to say that was my next question.
Yeah, so it's in the Pacific Islands. So Tuvalu is a country. I don't know. I can't remember how exactly far away it is. But yeah, so they make all Australian legal tender coins in terms of like the gold, silver, platinum bullion, but they make collectible coins that are either both Australian, that match the Australian story, and it's approved by the Australian Treasury, or if it's not approved by the Treasury, they just take the default option and go make Tuvalu coins instead. And so I said to them, "This is the option you can do. You can do this." I said, "Oh, okay. Didn't realize we did it." And then they said, "Oh, we were just thinking, just go find Jim Chalmers on a Friday afternoon after work at the car park in Canberra and just stalk him and say, hey, let's go do this. Let's get a coin made up and whatever." But the funny thing is that the assistant treasurer, his name is Andrew Lee.
No way, Andy Lee. Okay,
Andy Lee, that's it, but spelled differently. He said, "Oh yeah, and he said, "Oh, Andy Lee said this is all good. Let's sign off on it," because Andrew Lee's actually the one who signs off on the coins, not Jim Chalmers. So the assistant treasurer is the one that actually signs off on all the currency determination, legislation, and all that kind of thing. So they're trying to be clever, and we had this great chat between, who shouldn't be on a coin. I said, do you know the tax office has a coin? Like they released a 20-cent coin in 2010 commemorating 100 years of the tax office. Yeah, and it's like, what the hell? I was like, there's no point spending it because you spend it and you lose 30% of it anyway. So, it's just like, what's the point? So, no, it was great. It was fun. They were amazing.
What was their setup like compared to ours? Nothing
they
like ours?
They got a full radio TV. They're part of Listener, which is owned by Austereo.
They called you in, right? They did.
No, because I was in Perth. So I told my boss, can I have a period off to record a podcast with Hamish and Andy? He's like, hell yes. So I was in the little room in school and on the phone, talking to them, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. And yeah, they were great, and they'll see how, because I think it'll be a 2-3 year project. So they put a pin on it, but they'll get me back on it at some point, hopefully. That's what the producer said anyway. So they said they loved me being on the show and how funny I was, I guess. I don't know. They said that. But it was like, pardon?
Slay.
Just
we go from talking about physical economic, like the political and economic state of the world, to slay.
To just dropping W's in the chat, No, I can't believe I said that.
Oh my God.
We'll keep that in.
Just brain rot all around.
Brain rot.
Skibbity hockball.
They got excited when I did a gritty in class one day. I was like, this is what we turn to now? Really?
Oh, no.
No. So, the Hamish and Andy were great. They were exactly how I imagined it. As a kid listening to them, it was exactly like that.
That's
Because I've got a lot of comedian friends in Melbourne who are pretty well up now, like Nick Cody, Dilruk Jaisinger. I know them quite well.
Put in a word for us.
Yeah, well, you go on that. But Hamish and Andy are just like another level above those guys, and it's just like far out. So being able to be on a show and then also being interacting with Tom Gleeson in a space of 6 months is just
Australian royalty, Hamish.
Australian comedy royalty, essentially.
No, they're unreal, and they seem like good people.
Oh, they're amazing. And they're genuine. Like what you hear on the radio is what you get in that. Yeah.
Last time you were on, we did rapid fire questions.
Oh no,
we used to do that.
You stitched me up big time in that.
What did I say? Can you buy world peace or something like that? But
what were you want to buy with all this money? Is like
not world peace.
Not world peace. Yeah. So I was having a think. I didn't actually talk to Johnny about this. Just like if there was any just kind of questions like that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
And my roommate, I won't shout out his name. He likes to be incognito when it comes to social media. But he asked me to ask this question.
Okay.
Is that your roommate at your new place at
Yes.
You just dox him on the pod?
He doxes me every episode.
I used to do it this place and then he used to beep it out. So I'm just going to get the lip readers out there.
Yeah.
No, put a black box over your mouth.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you like teaching me in year 12?
Yes, in year 12, not before year 12.
Well, you never taught me before.
But I had interactions with you through the same house.
You didn't
and
like
the
me.
people that we had to deal with, and the person that was your mentor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did my mentor not like me?
No comment.
I thought my mentor loved me. Well, there was a period where my mentor in year 11 had me for media, English,
Yeah.
and one other subject, and was my mentor every
So
morning.
that's probably why. It's
I got
intense.
to Campbell
I
overload.
could not handle 4 periods of Campbell in a day. Who would?
Yeah, neither.
Hey,
Who was the teacher that gave you the detention crossing the road again?
Martin Gelly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll bleep out.
No, I
We'll
think,
bleep out.
no.
the name.
Year 12, you were fine. Like you're great. I mean, you would persistently ask me for extra
Come on,
marks.
boost the ego, feed me.
You pestered me for extra marks, but you also weren't the only one in the class that kept asking for extra marks. So
It's because I cared.
yeah, that's it.
I can tell this detention story if you
New
want.
detention story.
Need attention, it's all right.
When I was in year 12,
Yeah.
so at our school, you had to go through the underpass
You
to cross
told
the
it
road
last time,
to get
didn't
down
you?
to the.
I don't think he did. No, but
And
I
then he
think,
looked at him.
No,
Okay.
but I think I know what story he's talking about.
okay,
We'll see
okay.
anyway.
Well,
Sorry.
our house head was away, so like I
Yes.
didn't even have to talk to anyone about it, so it was chill.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I got like the hour Friday detention for this one. So at our school, you have to walk through the underpass to
Yep.
cross the road to get down to the car park where all the students
Yeah,
park.
yeah.
And like there's like what's the Memorial Hall or something gate?
Memorial Gate.
Yeah. So there's a teacher that stands there to
Yes.
not let you cross. And
Just Gandalf, just say, "Thou shalt not cross."
it was my year 11 maths teacher there.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely pouring with rain, like drenched.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I walk down to the underpass and go through, I'm going to be walking in the rain for an extra 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to cross this road and just jet
Yeah,
down
yeah.
to my car. So then as I go to cross the road, he like turns and looks at me and he goes, "No, you're not allowed to cross the road." And he's got his umbrella there and he's just
Yeah.
like all nice and dry. And I had that little situation scenario in my head that I just explained. I'm like, I am not walking down to the underpass and getting drenched. I'm going to jet off to my car.
Yeah.
So I literally just looked at him, locked eyes with him, and proceeded to cross the road without saying a word. And silently just crossed the road while locking eyes with him while he's just like looking at me like, "What are you doing?"
This looks like something out of a sitcom. You know, just like that.
Yeah, and then
Alpha.
yeah, it worked. I didn't get drenched and everything.
Yeah.
And then
But at what cost?
the cost was the next day I came to school to open an email that I was CC'd into to my parents.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Saying-
it's not worth it.
Like, I'm so disappointed in Campbell for this. He's like, I had such like a good view on him and he's really let me down with this. And like, it was like a pure just attack on my character. And it was like, it wasn't like I'm mad. It was like, I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
No, I remember this happening because I remember you told me this.
Because you were the acting house
for the
head.
week. For the week, yes.
Yeah.
I
And
saw
so,
that. But yeah, I had no power to change it, unfortunately.
to be fair, it was probably well warranted. Like,
He had no power to make
just
it.
a moody
make
kid.
it 2-hour detention. He'd like
It was
he
more
wanted,
of a
like you wanted
it was more like a
to.
ceremonial role, like King Charles III, that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just, it was more just like I was a moody year 12, like
Yeah.
defy like authority, you know,
Except me, of course.
except you. Yeah. In year,
Yeah.
well, what did we do in year 12?
He appreciates
My
strong
highlight
authority.
of year 12 with you was probably we'd do the, apart from you whipping up your TikToks on the screen, it was probably,
Yeah, this went viral this week. Have a look.
Yeah.
we'd do the music game where you'd play the start of a song
Yeah,
and we'd
yeah.
have two halves of the classroom
Yeah.
competing and you'd have to guess what song it is.
Is this tutor group? No.
No, business.
Business.
Year
No, we'd
12.
have, because we go through the content quite a lot regularly. So
Yeah.
I'd plan. So I'd look at the year. So a lot of people thought I'd do this randomly, but I actually planned my year out saying, oh, we can do something fun here. We can do something fun there.
Yeah.
So it'd be like that or Price is Right or something like that, you know? It
was just lit. It was lit.
The music were you good
And
at?
it just broke things. It just broke things down because you'd have them 5 times a week. Most kids were doing 5 or 6 ATAR.
Yeah.
And then also I'd my chocolate cupboard as well.
But it'd literally just be me versus like one of the other people on the other team because no one else cared.
No one else cared. That's
and
it.
I'm too competitive to like, I just wanted to win.
But
sort
no
of
one else
songs?
cared, but they all got the reward from it.
And I just got into it.
What sort of songs were we guessing here?
Well, we get to pick the genres,
Yeah.
which was cool. So
I'd go to Spotify.
I'd pick
Okay.
I'd pick like Drake and J. Cole and I'd think like, oh, I know everything. And then Ned Cusack would come out and know every
yeah,
Drake
yeah,
song
yeah.
ever. And I just wouldn't win. And it was just sad.
It was fun times.
Yeah. Well, I
was
was,
sad
talking,
and
I was
fun.
talking about the other night. It's been 4 years since we were at school.
I know.
It's been.
I went back to Founders
It's
Day the other
crazy.
day. It was good.
Yeah?
On Friday, I went there. Saw Gareth.
I don't
I
get any of
didn't
the emails.
see. I
I think
didn't
I've
see
got to
too
sign
many
up for
teachers,
the OSC
unfortunately,
stuff.
because they're all busy, and it's like they've moved on because there's every year group, they you get further away. you become less and less important. Oh, that's not true. But no, it was good. It was good to go back there and play the bagpipes. I've forgotten all the tunes basically at this point. I thought the muscle memory would kick in because we played the bagpipes so much. No, but it's starting to
bagpipe atrophy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. But I think as a teacher, I think for me the sweet spot being in a high school teacher, 6 years. I think.
Yeah,
because you get to see an entire year group through pretty much.
And then what do you do? You go to a different school.
You go to a different school, or you go find what's the next stage in your career. I think also in that 6 years, that's your baseline in terms of when you feel fulfillment in your role as a teacher. So you get to see that growth, and you know that you supported the growth in those kids. But also you got to do things in that time frame to grow your career or develop your career or learn. As a teacher, you're always learning. So trying to do those things so that you can move on to the next role and challenge yourself.
I can relate. I did 3.5 years as a water polo coach for the school.
Okay, yeah.
So, like the seconds.
Yeah.
So, and I did the 7, 8, 9 A's. So they finished as I finished. So when I was teaching my first season, I was doing year 9s. And I watched them go all the way through year 9 to year 12 and coach their final year 12 year.
Yeah.
I even ended up coaching my little brother when he was in year
12.
Yeah. So there was kind of like that full circle moment. And then, all the boys like Finn Harold and all those boys who'd never even played water polo before. And there was like 3 of them. And then by year 12, there was like 10 of all their mates that they just roped in to play polo because it was just fun. And it was like a good group of boys. And then they finished and I was like, okay, I've got a job now. I don't really want to do this anymore.
Exactly. That's it. And that sort of works out well. And I think the school that you're in does that really well in terms of getting former students back, getting to coach, and then see that and sort of having that same fulfillment and buy-in in that. I think I see that soccer when I was running soccer at school was great. You sort of see develop. You even had kids that came through that were sort of never played club soccer or anything like that, but came through and you see the skills develop because of the coaching we put in and all that kind of thing. And they leave year 12 and it's like, oh, you guys are actually really good at what you do in that respect, which is sort of great to see. But currently at the school I'm at, I coach indoor cricket. So they play.
Wow.
They play. So indoor cricket. So rather than because there's not enough time to play.
Is it anything like the PSA though?
Nah, never. Nothing matches the PSA. But the kids I've had from 7, 8, and 9, they won a title every year, so I got the three-peat.
Let's go.
So it was just so good to have that. And the
greatest.
Just winning everything at the moment. Like
winning
slowly. So what's next? What's next for you?
It's pretty much on. I'm leaving it for life to take its hold and do what it needs to do. I've got everything in life happy where I am. I'm going to be working in a new school next year. I'm doing a lot of work for the Perth Mint as well in terms of promotion work and building relationships. I think for me, this year was a lot of consolidation and then getting that growth. And also, I think for me, the biggest thing for me is improving my physical health. I had a bit of a health scare 3-4 months ago, ended up in hospital. And since then I've lost quite a bit of weight. Just seeing my face now compared to what it looked on hard quiz, I'm just like, wow, there's a difference happening there. So keep building on that. And I think everything else will start to take care of itself. So I'm not putting any goals in place, whatever, but continue to build my relationships, continue to be a good teacher, be a good friend, get back playing cricket. I think that's it. I think if I take care of the small things, everything else will take care of itself. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for your time, but I'd love to finish on a quote then. And thank you very much.
Hang on, we have to tell the story of this. We're talking about it briefly. The story of the $2
from what
note.
you just said, I'll finish on a quote in a little bit. But
would you like to talk to the
thank you very much
US
for
$2 note?
Yeah, $2 bill. A lot of people around the world, and especially in America, don't know about the $2 bill whatsoever. They think it's a fake note or whatever, but they've been printing $2 bills forever. They don't make them any because the demand for them is not much, and so you can go to the banks in the US and order them and get them. But if you use them, some people think they're fake to the point that people have been arrested for using $2 bills in the United States because even the cops over there don't even realize that they're a real thing.
So they're that rare.
They're not rare. They've made billions of them, but the awareness of it. Same with the US. There's a dollar coin in the US. Again, the awareness is very poor in that respect. But some businesses will give out $2 bills as gimmicks in their change. So it gets people to come back to the business and use them. And so what people think they're rare, they actually just end up hoarding them. So again, when I talk about the velocity of transacting banknotes, that's a very low velocity banknote because people see them, keep them as like keepsakes and such. So very interesting story. And it's probably my favorite note of all because of that stuff, but also the signing of the Declaration of Independence in the back is a very iconic scene right there. So
right. And Thomas Jefferson, who was the second
president,
there
you go.
Probably gets more forgotten. He's probably be pissed off about being in the $2 note.
But I mean, the Viv Richards note's better, though.
The Viv Richards
in
note,
the background from
Yeah.
last time you came when you gave us that. Thank you very much.
That is
Well, I really
quite an
appreciate
amazing
that.
image.
That's
No
awesome.
worries.
Thanks very much.
I see it on there.
But no, I really love this
Thank you very
chat. Like I think we covered a lot of different
Yeah,
topics, and we got
could chat
into
forever.
the nitty gritty, and we honestly could. But no, I had an awesome time, and I just want to say thanks very much for coming on again on like short notice.
Short
as well.
notice.
It's really appreciated, and just love it.
We're proud. We're proud of you.
We're proud to know you.
Congratulations.
We're proud to
on
know
the
you.
And I'm proud of you both
quiz.
too.
Yeah,
The growth
thank
that you
mate.
guys had since you've been teenagers to what you are now, and doing this, and
Yeah,
getting
from
the-
not
getting-
liking me to now liking me.
but getting the type of people that you're getting in and having genuine, authentic conversations with them. You guys are amazing. I hope you guys keep growing.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
mate.
it.
One day we'll have as many followers as our. I know you want to finish any quote. What's the follower count at now? The history of money.
86,000 on Insta and 131,000 on TikTok.
So before I finish on my quote, where can everyone find you? Where
You
can
can
they go?
find me on TikTok at The History of Money and on Instagram at The History of _money.
All right.
Underscore is in the symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the word underscore.
Yeah.
Philosophical quote to finish the
Oh
podcast.
dear.
You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Perfect. Great book.
Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks for having me.
And I can never ever. If you get lost, I press the rewind so you don't see nine. No, I can tell that you a winner. I'm making key lime cause I was living in the backseat till you bag me. All my niggas never playing games like we bad street. When she's talking, feel like poetry in motion, and I feel like I'm chosen. When she look at me, I'm getting lost up in that ocean. Everywhere in motion. They ain't got a notion. I wanna tell them